Okay. All right, I'd like to call the May 26th board meeting to order. And Renee, would you note that, are we all present?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't say hi to Christina or Katie, so I do see Katie.
I did.
So please note that the board is present. And please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
to
of the United States of America, to the republic
for
which
it
stands
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty and
liberty and justice
for
for all.
all.
and justice for all.
Okay, all right.
Well, now we know
So-
why Zoom's not used for e-learning.
All right, first item up is approval of the agenda. Board, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank
Second.
you, Ms. Hutchinson. Okay, thank you, Dr. Clayton. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay. I'll need to ask you how you're going to vote. Uh-oh, I didn't write your names down in order. And okay, for agenda approval, Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote?
Your volume's not on.
Uh-oh, yeah,
Christina?
it is on.
Somebody text her.
Christina, she's there. I can see her.
Oh, okay. She may have muted herself there.
Maybe is that her?
No,
Oh.
she's not muted either.
Oh,
So
earlier I heard her.
I can see her. So yeah.
I hear a dog
Christina,
barking.
say something.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So
Aye.
we are, oh, okay. Thank you. Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So the agenda is approved. Do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next we have, Miss Markowski.
Yes, ma'am.
I am not seeing, do you have our screen?
Your screen's up. Are you seeing it?
Maybe not. Maybe I'm not on the right
Hold on.
place. Hold on. I may not be. I'm sorry.
Renee, I can see it. I can see
I
it.
can see it.
Well, I see it, but are you?
I can see it too.
Oh, okay. I see your cursor moving now.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, never
scrolling
mind.
through. We don't have anything under goals and strategies and
Right,
student
right.
achievement tonight. So
Mhm.
yes,
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that, Renee.
you're totally fine.
Okay. Next would be the consent agenda. We need approval of the consent agenda. Board, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted by Superintendent.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. Any questions or comments on any of the items on the consent agenda? Okay. On approval of the consent agenda, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye. The consent agenda is approved. Okay, next we have gifts to buildings. Ms. Hutchinson, would you do that for us, please?
A very small month or couple weeks, but we do have a couple of box tops for education for New Washington Elementary and Riverside Elementary totaling $157.80. I move that we accept these gifts to building.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Hutchinson. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments on that? All right, all those in favor, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask about Ms. Gilkey on approval of gifts to buildings. How do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins.
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye. So gifts to buildings is approved. Our first action item is the master contract with the ICWC UFCW Local 15-C.
Yes, Board, that's our recognized bargaining agent for our maintenance, custodial, labor, garage helper and mechanics, and pony driver employees. And that bargaining group voted to ratify a tentative agreement that we'd reached regarding their salary and wage-related benefits. The primary changes to that contract include a contract term through June 2021. Their salary increase includes a one-level increase for the 2020-2021 school year. This group also received the same stipend for the insurance premium increase that all of our other bargaining units received. We will be moving to the 24 pay. This is the last group that we had to bargain that change with, so all of our employees will be now on a 24 pay schedule. New employees will earn their annual days prorated over their first year of employment. And custodians will move from level 0 to level 1, so those are new hires, upon their completion of the 90-day orientation period. And our recommendation is to approve this master contract. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Geltmaker. Board, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the master contract with our custodial as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Are there any questions or comments on this contract approval? Okay. On this contract approval, Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
and I vote aye. This contract is approved. Okay. The next item is the Transportation Center, and Mr. Schenk, you're going to talk to us about that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Okay.
actually going to start by looking at the recommended action, and we're going to ask the board for a revision, and I'll talk a little bit about the reasoning for that. The bids were open, the bids were submitted, and you can see that the bids, they were advertised on March 20th and March 27th and opened on the 21st at 2 p.m. We did have 7 bidders with the prices ranging from $2,673,867 to $3,070,000 for base bids. And then you can see with all 3 alternatives in the range from there. What I would like to recommend is that we reject those bids as they were presented. And the reason for that is we have seen and found that in Indiana code, it states that all bidders prior to submitting a bid for public works that is over the $300,000 threshold, which this clearly is, prior to bidding on any work for the state of Indiana through public works, which this project would qualify for that, bidders are to receive a certification from the Indiana Department of Public Works. That certification typically does not take very long, upwards of 2 to 3 weeks, and there's really not a whole lot of paperwork involved. However, the low bid that was received by the Jacobs Group, they did not satisfy that litmus on Indiana code. They satisfied the actual bid specifications, which said prior to awarding of the contract and signing of the contract with the board, that a contractor must have that certification on file. However, Indiana code supersedes that. Indiana code says that prior to bidding. So therefore, because of that, I'm going to recommend that we reject all the bids presented. I'm also going to further recommend that the board give us the authority through our architect on this project, which is Covert Hawkins, to resubmit the bid specifications, which will include much more detailed language as far as referencing the Indiana code and making sure that all bidders know that prior to submitting a bid, they must have that certification, at least in application. They may not have it in their hands, but they have to have applied for that through the Indiana Public Works Board. What I'd like to do is make a recommendation that we reject the bids, that we then put those out for News and Tribune to be advertised this Friday and then the following Friday. And then we have to wait by state statute, we have to wait 10 days between the last advertisement and the date of a bid opening, which puts our bid opening on June 15th at 2 p.m. We would collect all of those bids and then bring that to the school board for its June 23rd meeting to accept the low bid at that point in time.
Okay.
Madam President,
Mhm.
I just want to, I was gonna make the motion. I want to make sure the motion would be correct. We're going to reject all bids and then also to re-advertise. Is that correct?
Yes, Dr. Clayton.
Okay. Madam
Okay.
President, I move that we reject all bids and re-advertise as requested by the superintendent.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Any other questions on this item?
I'm
Okay.
really kind of confused because fellow board member Hawkins brought this to our attention, and I wouldn't have had a clue without his expertise. But I would have thought that our architectural firm, our engineering firm, would have caught that. Is that something that we shouldn't expect?
Well, we did meet with him right before this meeting, and he did admit the error and apologize, to the board and all of us, for that omission. And I think Chad explained it well in terms of that company needed to make sure they applied for that certificate before they put the bid in, and they didn't do that.
And they've done jobs all over Indiana, is my understanding.
They have, but they've not done public works projects.
Ah, thank you, Bill.
And then one other thing I'd like to add, Covert Hawkins, they may have had a time delay between the time that they generate these documents, these specifications books with the bid forms at some point in the past, and they typically they're cut and paste, and they had the same issue that they had to deal with on another project that's out for bid right now. So they've got that corrected. It's probably an oversight on. I'm going to assume it was an oversight on their part with their original documents.
Okay.
A lot of money we pay, or the taxpayers pay.
I agree
And I
with
have a
that.
question for Chad. Okay, I have a question for Chad. Chad, this timeline, by being bumped like it is because of this oversight or this mistake, where's it going to put you for the beginning of school and whenever that might
Well,
be?
yes, ma'am, that's a great question. I think we'll lose 2, maybe 3 weeks of the timeline. Now, how much of that is actual construction time? We were probably, should we have not caught this omission and this error, we were still going to be waiting on the Jacobs Group to get that certification in front of us before the board could ever sign a contract, which is what it's specified in the bid specifications. So we were still kind of at the mercy of the Public Works Board at the state of Indiana, and currently, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they're not meeting, and there's a backlog of getting those certifications out to contractors. But I don't think we're going to lose much time as far as brick and mortar time.
Okay.
The demo permits and all of those things are already in place. So essentially, if this works the way that we think it might, we'll bring a contract to the board as well as a recommendation and a board action to accept the low bid. So on the 23rd at its board meeting, I would anticipate bringing a low bid for the board to approve, and then further down in the same meeting, a contract that would have been reviewed by the board and also reviewed by legal counsel, Mrs. Geltmaker.
Okay, just one more comment. Great eyes, Bill Hawkins. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No problem.
Chad, let me ask this question. Is it possible that everybody knowing the bids, they could come down a little lower?
Yes, sir. You know,
Yeah.
when we talk about pencils being sharpened, I would anticipate that if anybody bids and they're not lower than the bid that we already received, well, they're just not doing their homework at all.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Bill.
I sorry I had to bring it up, but it's just wanted to make sure that we're playing by the rules.
That's good.
That's what you get that big salary for.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Oh,
I have a question for Chad.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
So I'm just wondering, under similar circumstances, if we had 7 bidders and the lowest bidder wasn't eligible to bid, why would we not go with the next eligible low bid? What
That's
would be
normal
the
practice.
reasoning for that, other than money?
That's the biggest. It would be $119,000. That was the next lowest bid, considering all 3 alternates. If we were up against a clock and needing to open and trying to get those construction, I guess those construction wheels turning rapidly, then I would probably make that recommendation that we look at the next lowest bid, which would be $120,000 more expensive to the district. However, I really don't think it's going to alter the overall construction process. We've already moved our transportation offices. You know, quite honestly, this will allow us to, the next item up on the board packet here is for surplus and obsolete items. This is going to allow us to continue to wrap up all of the auction items and trying to get that site completely empty. We've come a very, very long way. We've had a lot of people working hard, even during this pandemic, but this certainly will not delay the overall finished product. We still anticipate being able to call our new transportation service center home for the start of the second semester after the holiday break.
Hey, Chad, I have this may end up going to April or Mr. Dykle. If I understood correctly, all the bids were above our budget. Is that correct?
They were, and we talked a little bit about, well, actually went into quite a bit of length of where we think the overall bonds that are tallying all of the projects that we've got right now with the facility bond, where those came in and how we're going to be able to recommend doing a few things within that scope of the overall bond. Service center was over budget, but we had some others that were under budget. So overall, I think we're still, you know, with the actual bond proceeds total for all the projects, you know, we're still about $1.5 million to the good. But this was a little bit over our aforementioned budget.
So technically, and Ms. Geltmaker can correct me if I'm wrong, we really have 2 reasons to reject all the bids. Number 1 would be that the bid specifications were incorrect in the manner in which they were written. And number 2 is all the bids were over budget. Would that be accurate, Ms. Geltmaker?
That would,
Yeah,
Half.
right, that's correct. I mean, we do award to the lowest and
Most responsive.
most responsive.
And responsive means it's within budget, typically, correct?
Not necessarily.
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be, but I mean, it
Sometimes
can be.
they do, yeah, and if none of the bidders can meet
Right.
think-
budget.
Well, the reason I brought this up is because I wanted to make sure that we weren't challenged on, well, you just were out there trying to shop the price down lower. So,
I think we've got firm ground.
Yeah, if the specifications, Bill, as you said, if the specifications were improperly written, then that in itself goes them out.
I agree. I agree.
I agree.
But I just want our bidders out there to realize that we're not just price shopping this thing either. So,
Right.
and I would anticipate that we had 7. A couple of those were much higher in their base bid and their alternates. We may not have 7 this time around. We may have a couple new players, but I would think that we'll get 4 or 5 that are genuinely going to go after this with the sharpest pencil they can.
thank
Good
you.
enough.
All right. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you all. Okay, for approval to reject the bid and reissue,
Re-advertise.
re-advertise, I'm sorry, thank you. Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so these bids are rejected. Okay, our next item is surplus and obsolete items. Chad?
Yes, ma'am. So before you, you have the auction list, and you can see that it's grown, and that's what we anticipated. That there's quite a few auction items that are now going to be with the closing of Maple and the closing of Spring Hill Elementary Schools, and having had an opportunity for all the teachers and all the respective principals throughout the district to shop, if you will, for those items. We certainly anticipate that that this will all but exhaust most of those items, and then there will be one last auction that we think we'll be bringing to the board sometime probably for the June 23rd, and then that will exhaust all of the surplus items that we would have in the district, because we know that we're losing the service center. That demolition, we store a lot of things there. A lot of our surplus and obsolete items then find their way to the service center. So having anticipation of losing that building, that's the need for not only this auction list, but one more to come that'll be exhaustive as well.
Okay. Board, may I have a motion, please? Can you all hear me?
Madam President,
Oh, thank you, Ms. Gilkey.
I move to approve the recommendation to auction the items on the attached spreadsheet with Lincoln Crumb Auctions.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. May I have a second?
Second.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Was
Yeah,
that you,
three.
Mr. Hawkins?
I did, but somebody
Okay.
else got me before.
It's
got
all
me
right.
first, I
That's
think.
That's fine.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? All right, to approve the surplus and obsolete items for auction with Lincoln Crumb. Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson? Ms. Hutchinson?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Aye.
Oh, I can, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye, so this item is approved. Okay, our next item is the Greater Clark County Schools Virtual Academy.
Yes, good evening, Board. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, Greater Clark County Schools is pursuing all options of educational delivery methods to best support our students and families. We are seeking your approval to launch the Greater Clark County Schools Virtual Academy. Each year, we get inquiries from homeschooling co-ops who inquire about partnering with us on course offerings. And that, coupled with confidence levels due to the unpredictable contagion of COVID-19 and concerns of the traditional school model, that has prompted us to conduct a parent survey. Our survey data has overwhelmingly revealed that this is an option some of our families will seek for the future. So the executive team has researched the possibility. We've collaborated with other districts similar to Greater Clark. We've met with vendors to develop a quality virtual program. The virtual academy will be open to any student in Indiana, and the virtual academy will differ from e-learning by the following criteria. Our teacher training will be focused on 100% online delivery. It will be delivered by GCCS Virtual Academy teachers. It will be new content presented on a daily basis. The assessment will be mastery of the standards. There will be a mandated amount of live face screen time with students, and the content will be provided by a third-party software vendor. So this doesn't replace e-learning. This would be a standalone virtual program. The programming will vary by the grade levels of students. And in summary, basically there will be a decrease. The face time will progressively decrease with the age level of the student. So in elementary, there would be a daily face time with students. In grades 6 through 8, it would be 2 to 3 times per week. And then once they are at the high school level, the virtual academy will allow students to pursue their interests, earning high school and even college credits from home. The high school curriculum will exceed Indiana academic standards, and graduates will receive a Core 40 diploma in this program and may be able to earn an honors diploma with additional classes. So in grades 9 through 12, that will be more of an individualized pacing. There will be teacher appointments provided for individual or small group reteaching as needed. There will be content practice and additional instruction through our software vendor. The curriculum will be the Edmentum platform and their online programming partners, ExactPath and Study Island. ExactPath correlates with our NWEA norm reference test that we administer currently to all students. This will allow for a personalized growth plan for students, and Study Island delivers on grade level content aligned to the state assessment. All students enrolled in the virtual academy will receive a Chromebook electronic device, and there will be a $50 user fee per semester to cover the online software subscription and the Chromebook rental. There will be no other textbook fees associated with this program because it is a virtual academy.
Thank you, Dr. Hartledge. Board, may I have a motion, please, on approval of the virtual academy?
I move to approve the Greater Clark County Schools Virtual Academy presented as by Dr. Hartledge.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. May I have a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Milt.
Okay, Dr. Clayton. Questions and comments? I would like to make one. I can't say enough thank you to you all for working on this, for researching this, for all the time you've put in. It just seems like while people are around me are waiting to hear what's going to happen on July 4th when our governor speaks, that we're not waiting. We're looking ahead and knowing that regardless of what happens, this can be a very vital part of our school system for students who do not learn in the traditional way, who have health issues, who have emotional issues, and that we can therefore actually educate a even more diverse population than what we see within our buildings. So thank you all so much.
Dr. Hartledge, I have a question. It's kind of a what if it is determined that it's not going to work to have classes next year or the first semester of next year or the next school year, would the virtual academy be able to accommodate the number of people that we would anticipate we'd have to put into it?
Well, I think that we probably will be provided. I can't see that they would totally shut down. I mean, I think there would either be the e-learning option. This virtual academy differs from e-learning.
Right.
But I think, as Ms. Fitzpatrick said, we have really done our due diligence to try to look at all options, and we have to be prepared to respond to the conditions that were dealt.
Okay, worst case.
And we also need to be prepared that even if we start out in one, with option A, B, and C, at any given time, we know that we may need to shift to another option based upon what's happening in our world.
Right.
So could we accommodate all 10,000 of our students through the virtual academy? I think we could. I don't think that's going to be a realistic scenario. I think that we would have at least, a hybrid of e-learning with some face-to-face. It could be all, the governor might say we need to do e-learning like we've done at the close of this year. And I think we also need to look at what the needs of our families are, because I think there will be some families who need that more traditional setting. And we have to look at the learning needs of our students as well.
Okay, thank you.
Kimberly, if we have, suppose, we get a 9-week thing. There's some kids that are not, they don't have home coaches that are supportive. The parent decides, hey, listen, we're 6 weeks into this and we're not doing very well. Will there be some sort of articulation that that kid's not going to be that far off? I mean, from the face-to-face teacher, presuming we get to go back face-to-face, to our online delivery, are they going to be reasonably close curriculum map wise? Are they going to, you know what I'm saying? Curriculum.
Yes, they will. And that was part of our research.
I know it's hard.
Is that with Exact Path and Study Island, they provide two different pieces, the growth piece as well as the alignment with the Indiana academic standards.
Okay.
So we would be able to, our hope is that students would enroll by a semester because of, semester long courses and great pieces. But we know that as with anything, we're going to look at the needs of our students and make some exceptions when needed. But if a child were to transition back, that has been a very much a part of our conversation, because we want to provide a smooth transition as possible. And it may just be, like you said, a family scenario. Let's say someone starts out, parents aren't working, and then all of a sudden they're called back. And so they need to make that switch. So that is something we've been very cognizant of in our planning.
Yeah, and it could go the other way too. I mean, a kid could say, "Look, I'm not," or somebody had it. I'm worried somebody will have something and it'll set us back. But thank you for the work and thanks for the answer. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Kimberly, Dr. Hartley, you and your team have done amazing work. I think it was back in the 90s that virtual academies had their birth, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was big companies behind them, and it was just a big deal. And you guys have put this together, and it's very professional, and I think it's going to be perfect for our students. And I certainly appreciate you and your team.
Thank you.
Teresa, we had that at the alternative school. It was NovaNet, and it was extremely expensive. And the portals could be used 24 hours a day. You could put a kid on there at midnight, and he had to do his math.
The problem with those
like $3,600. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem with those early ones, there was not really anything for elementary students.
Right.
No.
And so this is kind of new territory. I know they're doing it in other places. They will have to do it in other places, but I appreciate the due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I guarantee it.
And I just want to say, I just want to thank the board and the administration too for putting in place this past school year the e-learning that has led the way. I feel like our district has done an amazing job transitioning. I mean, the whole state's had to, but I feel like we were maybe a little, not in front of the 8 ball, but off to the side. And I just want to thank everybody for that.
and thank you, Ms. Hutchinson, for being kind of the catalyst behind all that.
Thanks. Okay, Janelle, move on.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself after I already said. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Let us vote on approval of the Greater Clark County Schools Virtual Academy. How do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and this item is approved. Our next item is the Plato courseware agreement.
Yes, this is also me. In 2013, the Board of Schools trustees approved the purchase of Edmonton Plato courseware for the use in our corporation's alternative education program, credit recovery program, and online health program. This 3-year agreement could allow us to lock into current pricing for the next 3 years rather than be subjected to an annual price increase. The program provides standards alignment, ease of access, and cost feasibility for our district.
Thank you, Dr. Hartledge. For approval of the Plato courseware agreement, 3-year agreement, board, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the 3-year purchase agreement for the Edmedium Plato courseware.
I
Okay,
second.
thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Any questions or comments? I have used this program quite a bit at the Juvenile Detention Center. And I am glad to see that we are also going to use it in the virtual academy because the students, especially the high school students, will be familiar with it, and some of the teachers as well. So it makes for a very an easier transition to that. Okay. Any questions or comments? All right. On the approval of the Plato courseware 3-year agreement, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye. So this item is approved. Next, we have the school-age child care provider. That's also you, Dr. Hartledge.
Yes. Indiana code requires school corporations to provide opportunities for nonprofit organizations to offer a latchkey program in school facilities. By Indiana code and board policy, we issued a request for proposals on March 6, 2020. An RFP was advertised in the News and Tribune on March 6th and March 13th. One organization, Communities and Schools in Clark County, responded to the RFP. We opened the bid on April 20th, and a committee made up of executive team members reviewed the proposal. Communities and Schools has provided the school-age child care program in our elementary schools with extensive wraparound services, including resource coordinators, therapists, and social workers providing support to students and families for several years. The committee unanimously endorsed the Communities and Schools proposal and feels the organization will continue to provide a strong education program for GCCS students participating in the after-school child care program. The proposal includes a provision for 2 annual renewals. The RFP requested the provider be prepared to use a data sharing agreement to benefit the student's educational achievement. Communities and Schools adequately responded to this section of the RFP. A collaborative agreement is attached for latchkey services provided before and after school. A memorandum of agreement for the 2021 school year is also included with the RFP to cover expenses for services delivered during the school day. The program costs for the academic year are $40,500 for contracted services at 9 elementary schools, $4,500 per school, and $10,000 for contracted services at Jeffersonville High School for a total of $50,500. The elementary schools who are a part of that are Bridgepoint, JJ, Franklin Square, Parkwood, North Haven, Wilson, Riverside, PR, and TJ.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hartledge. For approval of the school-age child care provider, board may have a motion.
Madam President,
Madam President,
Go ahead, Christina, please.
Madam President, I move to approve the contract with communities and schools for our latchkey program.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. On the 10,000 Jeff High School, is that because of the number of kids or what?
Yes, they provide a full-time resource therapist there all day long, as
Okay.
well as some other extended wraparound services for our students.
Thank
And
you.
this is a fairly new program. I think this is our second full year that we've been in Jeff High.
Okay.
Ms. Hartledge, I have another question. Dr. Hartledge, I'm sorry. If for some reason we are prevented from going back into our buildings, how will that affect this contract?
Well, there has been some discussion and we don't really know what this is going to look like. It's all going to depend upon the governor's guidance.
That's where I'm
But
trying to look at the possibilities. So
there has been discussion that as schools, we should try to provide some childcare as needed, specifically for our essential workers. So that could impact this, but we have to proceed as if there will be some form of face-to-face instruction. Like we said, we don't know what that's going to look like, but because of that, there will be people who need before and after care.
okay, that's all I was asking. That was the question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have
Okay.
a quick comment, Janelle.
Go ahead, Ms. Gilkey.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you board members know, I have a granddaughter who uses communities in schools in our school system. And I greatly appreciate the work that they do, providing after school care for our working parents. Not only is it secure, you have to have a code to go in there and sign a child out. You can't just walk in and say, "Oh, I'm Aunt Susie." Like they are very good about making sure that people are secure. And they also have very engaging activities for the kids. This is not just a babysitting program. I mean, they actually engage the kids in activities and crafts. And from everything I've seen, they do a really good job. So I just want to let you all know from my personal experience that I feel like communities in schools is a great partner.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly, Ms. Gilkey. They also pursue the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, and that's dovetailed with the work that we do, and that is what helps to fund many of those activities that you referenced.
How does this, or is it at all, does it interface with the on your way pre-K? Are they going to be providing any services to those kiddos?
Yes, we have been in talks with them, and right now we're collecting data. They are doing the work that they would need to do because they have to be licensed, which they currently are for 5 of our sites. We have been, as parents express interest in our On My Way Pre-K program, we're asking how many of them would actually need before and after care for preschool students, because we will have to provide a little bit different model. The stipulations are a little bit different for preschool, but we have been pursuing all those avenues to make sure that we would have that in place as well. And they've been great in working with us and willing to do whatever it needs to happen to provide those services.
And I know it has a summer component too. Is that correct?
They do not currently provide a summer program. The On My Way Pre-K provides a voucher that would cover summer childcare. But they would also accept the vouchers. Children who receive a voucher for On My Way Pre-K get the child care component, and it would roll over into communities and schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. On approval of the school age child care provider through communities in schools, How do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So this item is approved. Next, we have the AT&T Centrex contract.
Yes, board, this is my last one. We currently have 6 schools on the old phone system, and that's Bridgepoint, JJ, PR, Parkview Middle, TJ, and Wilson. So this contract renews current services set to expire on July 1, 2020 for phone lines at schools who have not yet transitioned to the voice over IP. It also provides emergency calling for most sites in the district. Inbound calling for schools outside of Jeffersonville is also provided by this service.
Okay, thank you. Board, on approval of this AT&T Centrex contract, may I have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the AT&T Centrex contract as submitted.
Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. On approval of this item, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So this item is approved. Next, we have the authorization to award the Charlestown Middle School pool project.
I would like to present to the board the Charlestown Middle School pool bid. Bids were advertised and opened on May 6th. The bid results are attached. R.L. Turner out of Indianapolis is the low bid of $2,243,000. The money for this award is in the 2019 bond issue. Recommended action to award to R.L. Turner.
Thank you, Todd. Board, on this Charlestown Middle School pool project, may I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the award for the Charlestown Middle School bid project to R.L. Turner.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. On approval of the authorization to award Charlestown Middle School pool project to R.L. Turner, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye. This item is approved. Next, we have the award for the football lights at Charlestown High School.
I'm also presenting this award for the Charlestown High School football lights to Musco Lighting at the price of $295,000. The football lights were not included in the original year one presentation, but due to the savings we were seeing on other projects, the administration felt it was necessary to add the lights to the Charlestown High School project. The administration is utilizing the state procurement system with the money for this project coming out of the 2019 bond issue savings. Recommended action to award to Musco Lighting.
Thank you, Todd. Board, on this football lights at Charlestown High School, may I have a motion?
Move to approve the Charlestown High School football field lighting to Musco.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments on this?
I'd like to make a comment. For anyone viewing this session, we're not just, we need to let the public know we had 4.5 hours last week, week before last, in a lot of information items here. So we're not just voting without any knowledge. So that's the reason we don't have a lot of questions.
Well, and just to
Thank
give
you,
you a
Dr.
little,
Clayton. Yeah.
sorry, to give you a little more background on this, we were hoping just to be able to do retrofits on top of the poles. But after Musco came out and looked at the poles, you know, they said they couldn't be salvaged or saved. They're pretty corroded. The electrical running up through them it's pretty bad. Would need to be redone. So you know, their recommendation to us was just to redo everything, the poles and the lights.
You know, the money is there because it was in our original bid and our bond issue. And I think it would be ridiculous to go ahead and redo that football field and have inadequate lighting.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Okay.
one question for Todd. Hey, Todd, are these on LED systems or are these sodium vapor or mercury vapor?
These are LED systems, and then on these, it comes with a basic control package where you know, the athletic director or I can even turn them off from our phone. So now we have the ability to put on a schedule basically now and make sure that they turn off at midnight or so.
Okay, thank you.
So if we were losing a game, you could like turn the lights off, Todd. Like that.
All right.
GCCS probably won't approve of that.
Who are they?
Purely accidental.
They,
Oh, darn it. I clicked the
they,
wrong button on my phone.
they have a package where you can do a light show when you score a touchdown too, but that was going to be a little bit extra.
How much
Hey.
extra? I like that.
If you remember a few Super Bowls back, there was a light issue.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, Teresa.
There
Long pass, and then you turn the lights off. He misses.
you go.
Oh, I think you dropped it.
Let's play
Oh.
that one over.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. As to the approval of awarding the football lights at Charlestown High School to Musco, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so this item is approved. Next, we have the lunch price increase.
Yes, regulations at 7 CFR 210.4E require school food authorities participating in a national school lunch program to ensure sufficient funds are provided to the nonprofit school food service accounts for meals served to students not eligible for free or reduced price meals. There are two ways to meet this requirement, either through the prices charged for paid meals or through other non-federal sources provided to the nonprofit school food service account. Under the guidance of the paid lunch equity, we will recommend increasing the price of paid student meals every year based on the annual increase to free and reduced price reimbursement. Our meal prices are currently in line with surrounding school districts, and they will be facing a similar mandated increase. Currently, elementary paid lunch is $2.80, secondary paid lunch is $3.05, and adult lunch price is $3.85. Proposed pricing for the 2021 school year is as follows. Elementary paid lunch will increase to $2.90. Secondary paid lunch will increase to $3.15, and the adult lunch price will also increase to $4. There will be no change to breakfast or milk prices. We're asking approval for this 10-cent increase across the board.
Thank you, Dr. Dykle. For approval on the lunch price increase, board, may I have a motion?
Madam President, in regards to regulation 7 CFR 210-4, I move that we approve the lunch price increase.
And thank you, Dr. Clayton.
He is so proud of him.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Any questions or comments on this?
I'd like to know if I can come over to the high school and eat my lunch at $4 a meal. It sounds a pretty good deal.
Yes, you can.
Uh-huh.
I've done it several times.
Cheaper than Max now.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's fun in the elementary schools because the elementary kids come up and want to know who you are and what you're doing. And they get food all over you. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, oh, it sounds like it.
It is. It is.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Questions or comments?
I can't say them.
All right, for the approval of the lunch price increase, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So this item is approved. The next item is the resolution to transfer money from the education fund. Dr. Dykle?
Yes, thank you. This is the first one that we're doing this year. So we've gone basically 5 months without transferring any money. So the administration is submitting the attached resolution to transfer 1.5 million from the education fund to the operations fund for those expenditures that are to be paid by the education fund. So we're asking permission to move 1.5 million.
Thank you, Dr. Dykle. For the approval of this resolution to transfer money from the education fund, may I have a motion, board?
Madam President, I move that we move the $1.5 million from the education fund to the operations fund as listed by Dr. Dykle.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Hawkins. May I
Second
have a
that
second?
motion. Mhm.
May I have a second?
A second.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Hutchinson.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments on this?
I'd like to point out to the news media that may be watching that we are not going broke because we're transferring money back and forth.
Probably needs to be said, Mr. Hawkins. Okay, anything else? Okay, on the approval of the resolution to transfer money from the education fund, how do you vote, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye, and this item is approved. Our next item is the bid award for the food services management.
Yes, Renee wanted me to read all of this that's on the next 2 pages, and I said, no, we're not going to do all that. It'd take too
That
long.
would be a lie. I think we had a talk, Tom. No.
No, anyway, we had 4 companies requests for RFPs, and only 2 submitted bids, Aramark and Chartwell. We had a review committee consisting of Janelle Fitzpatrick, Teresa Perkins, Mark Loeffner, Dr. Kim Hartledge, Tricia Helton, and myself. And Monday, May 18th, we met via Zoom and we discussed the proposals. And we also developed some questions that we were going to submit to both vendors. Then on Wednesday, we actually had Zoom meetings with both vendors. You see the scoring matrix there that we have totaling 100 points, how we came up with our numbers. After both presentations, we were still on Zoom, the companies left, and each of us went through the scoring matrix, and I asked everybody their scores, and we came up with the points. As you can see, Aramark came out clearly ahead. Out of 100 possible points, they came in at 96.3 versus 87.3 for Chartwell's. In their proposal, items 5 and 6, and I just noticed I'm missing a 4, but item 5 and 6, according to the state DOE food service department, they cannot make this contribution as part of the contract, the 10,000 to the education foundation and the 5,000 for the district's direction. So those 2 items have to come out of the award. Now they could still make it, but it just cannot be part of this contract. So we won't lose 15,000 coming from Aramark. But anyway, what really swung the committee over to Aramark was the guarantee of $815,370 if they take over all food service operations, including all of our employees. There are 9 employees who are within 2 years of retirement who will stay with Greater Clark until they are eligible to retire. And then we will switch them to Aramark. Aramark will make a financial commitment of 140,000 for equipment and marketing, which would be a pod, which is provisions on demand kiosk at Charlestown High, which really looks nice. A rally kitchen at Jeff High, and new warmer cooler pass through at New Wash Middle High. Their management fee right now is 15.5 cents per meal served. It'll drop to 14 cents per meal served. So that's a savings right there. When you're looking at 2 million meals that you're serving, that's over $200,000 that we will save just on that alone. Volume discounts, credits, rebates should be anywhere between 300 and 500,000. They have a comprehensive nutrition, wellness, education across the school district, made to order rotating cooking stations at the secondary level. They even have now pre-order meals that the kids can and the staff can also pre-order ahead of time. They want to improve the speed in which the students can get through the serving lines to have more time to eat. Made from scratch cooking, specialty menus, and made to order meals. They have beyond salad options, vegetarian, vegan, halal, kosher, allergy sensitive. And the administration is happy to recommend Aramark as our food service provider for the next school year with 4 one-year renewals. Anybody on the committee want to make any comments?
Yeah, both companies were excellent. And I think we could have picked both, either one of them. And one other thing that you didn't mention is that, and I didn't know this until I was on the committee, the catering that's been done by Aramark, which is expanding and expanding and expanding. Greater Clark gets the profits. I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. And it's
Last year they
turned
did
out to
over
be quite a
100
bit of money.
Yeah, last year they did over $140,000 in catering for us.
Tom, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Now, this $140,000 for equipment and marketing. Now,
Mr. Clayton, Dr.
Wait,
Clayton,
wait.
we
need
need
a
to do a
motion.
motion.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm
Teresa,
sorry,
make
we
the-
need to, yeah, I'm sorry, I muted
Teresa,
myself
go ahead and
again.
make the motion.
We
I'm
need
sorry.
to do a motion first
Um,
and then can we? yeah,
Madam
we can do
President,
that.
I move that we approve Aramark for a food service provider happily.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. I do have a second.
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. Okay, Dr. Clayton?
Okay, I'm sorry. I
That's all
forgot
right.
I forgot Teresa was on the committee, and that's my error. On this $140,000, now, let's say they purchase some equipment, and let's say that the second year contract, do they take that equipment with them, or does that become ours?
That is ours. That's part of their agreement.
Okay, just checking.
Mhm.
I remember the
Natalie's
last.
shaking her head.
I remember the last situation, we purchased equipment and then we had to buy it back from them. It didn't make any sense to me, but that's when I asked the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I was also on that committee. And I would like to say this about, it sounds like that last week we did everything. We had meetings about this situation, and I started to get calls today, right before the Zoom meeting, And, you know, we expect some backlash, but because of Greater Clark employees realizing that we are asking, you know, we're having them move to become Aramark employees. Now, we talked a lot about the first time, which was several months back, I think. Is that right, Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
We talked about this several months back, and we asked some very, very specific questions. This is a very difficult decision to make. It's often not a popular decision, but it's one that we, you know, financially have to make. But we've asked some questions as specific as, Aramark, do you pay for the shoes? Do you provide the uniforms? Will you hire all of our employees? Will they, you know, will they have the same pay rate when they come into your company? What kind of benefits do you provide? You know, and we even went as far as looking at how many Greater Clark employees, which is mentioned here, are almost within that vested time for retirement. And And by looking at that, we found 9 employees who are within 2 years of being vested for retirement. So we excluded those employees because we didn't want to have those employees say, I got this close and then got sold out. Many companies get taken over by other companies, get bought out by other companies, and sometimes they just clean the slate and start over. And we did everything that we felt we could to check out this situation before we went into making this decision. So, again, it may not be popular. We may have people who are not happy, and that's always going to be the case. But I feel like that we ask a lot of questions and did not want to just put our Greater Clark employees in a situation where we felt like they were going to lose anything.
Janelle, I can add to that. You're exactly right. I'm thinking back to the actual interview with the 2 companies, and I think we spent more time on that issue with those companies than any other issue other than cost. And student voice was big for us with both companies, and that was good. But no, we spent a lot of time with both companies making sure that our employees actually are going to be better than moving away from us, I think.
I have one question.
I have
I presume that the committee members have asked our legal counsel to verify that the agreements that were made verbally during the meetings have been carried over into our contracts. Would that be accurate?
Well, no, what
Well-
was done, I mean, what you're looking at here is what the company has agreed to.
Right.
That was part of their proposal
Right.
in their bid. So it was in writing as part of their bid proposal.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
So you guys got what you asked for.
I have
from
a
the master.
question.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
Ms. Wilkie.
All right. Thank you.
So my question, and I applaud you all, Janelle, thank you for clarifying, for asking all of those questions, because those are certainly very important questions to ask on behalf of our employees. What I'm not clear on is how have we communicated this to those employees so that they are aware, so that they know that we've looked out for their best interest. What kind of communications have happened to ease their fears?
Well, I don't know, because unfortunately, I think the cat was let out of the bag. So I do know, though, that is Miss Helton on here?
Yeah, I was going to say, Trish, can you add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yes,
is
can you hear me okay?
yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So we did meet with the cafeteria managers to let them know that this was going to be the plan. We had planned to meet with them a little bit earlier, but with all of the COVID things just coming up real abruptly, we weren't able to meet it with them as quickly as we would like to have. However, we did meet with all of the cafeteria managers to let them know what the plan was going to be. And then all of the other employees hourly will be notified via a letter, as well as the managers, again, just to reiterate what we need to do to move forward. So they should be receiving those fairly soon, but we weren't going to send those out until the board approves this.
Okay.
It's the letter from you, Trish?
It says it's actually marked is who it says it's from. Sincerely, Mark Lossner at the bottom, and then I'm copied on the bottom as far as their personnel file as well.
Okay.
Aramark also plans on meeting
Yeah.
with the food service workers, in smaller groups to go through. They're going to bring their benefits manager down, and go through the benefits and everything.
Yes.
When you look at the big picture of what we're doing here, my belief is the timing is right from the standpoint of we've built up a really good relationship and trust with Aramark. I trust that Aramark's going to take care of our Greater Clark people, and I think now's the time to make that decision to go ahead and let them take care of our people. And you know, on our side of things, you know, it does benefit us financially. I mean, we're going to see a pretty significant savings from making this decision. So,
Mark, I totally agree with your comment there. You know, like I said, Chartwell was excellent company too, but giving over our employees to another company, I'm glad we're being able to do it to Airmark because of our trust with them.
And I think,
are we under
you know,
discussion?
yes,
we-
we are.
Okay. Well, when you get to, go ahead, and then I'll have to say something.
Oh, and thank you, Trish, for that. I think that, again, it's one of these things that is a difficult decision for us to make. Doing this now, Mr. Loeffner, I think the timing is right. And we also know that financially speaking, and I hate to say everything is about money, and I, because I don't like that. At the same time, we know that there's a very good chance that we're going to see budget cuts from the state, and those
Yes.
budget cuts will happen as early as January 2021, and that's right in the middle of a school year. And we have to be as financially prepared for those types of things as well. I believe also one of the things that Aramark has is their benefits package, which I believe is probably better than Greater Clark. I know we may not have a lot of people who take those benefits, but it sounded like that what they pay for the employee is possibly better than what Greater Clark pays. So I was happy about that, because I always know benefits are sometimes a really big issue these days.
Okay, excuse me. I think you guys have done a good job on this, but to keep Airmark, I think I have to go what Bill was saying, to keep Airmark on their toes. And again, I think they've done a good job, but I'll vote no against that, to make sure that they understand that this is not going to be 7-0. Nothing personal. I don't put my trust just in anybody, because they could change management. Things change, but we'll just have to wait and see. We put our trust in some of our contractors, and then we find out that they didn't they didn't comply with the rules and regulations. So, and they should. That's what they do all the time. So, there's where I'm at with it. Like I say, I think y'all done a good job looking at everything, but mine is not anti. It's just that, hey, be on your toes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Clayton.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on this?
Yes, Madam President, I believe the recommendation was to, or a motion was to recommend the approval of Airmark as presented their contract. Can we also add to that, excluding number 5 and 6?
So the approval was, or the motion was to approve Airmark as our food service provider.
Doesn't that mean accepting their bid product, their bid contract?
I don't know, Renee, April, do we need to pull those?
April, what do we need to do something on number 5 and 6?
Or you can just say
You
excluding.
can make a motion to amend.
Yeah.
Well, I thought.
You don't have to unmove it and then remove it again. I would forget how to do this. I move to amend my first motion. I move that we approve Airmark as our food service provider as submitted, minus number 5 and 6, presented by Dr. Dykle.
Okay. Thank you, Miss whatever your name is, Hutchinson. Do I have a second on her motion?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Perkins. Okay. Are there any other comments or anything?
Janelle, this is Christina. You said you got some calls.
Yes.
So if our cafeteria managers were told, I don't know, I didn't really get exactly when. Like, was there a mandate then for them to communicate to the workers? Because, I mean, if they just found this out Friday and now we're voting on it Tuesday, I'm uncomfortable with them having an opportunity to get questions answered and reach out to us. I'm not clear on how all this has been communicated.
Right. We started this like months ago, and that's why I asked Ms. Helton about how they were communicated with. Ms. Helton, when were those managers, when did you meet with those managers? Do you remember?
Yes, ma'am. We just met with them today, earlier today.
Do you think?
There wasn't enough time from when we made the decision on Thursday to set up a meeting for Friday to get in touch with them. So we set it up for today, and we told them the decision that we were going to be presenting to the board earlier today.
Can
So
I ask,
that's-
are these
I'm not okay with that.
No.
Are these employees under a bargaining agreement unit?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
No, they
And-
are not.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Okay. All right.
There was a
No,
meeting.
They used to be, but they are no longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had set up a meeting, well, Patricia and Tom set up a meeting, I guess it was probably mid-March, late March. And it had to be canceled that was right when the COVID situation hit.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
When did they decertify?
A couple
the
years ago.
association.
It's been a few years.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So-
Well,
so-
then,
Excuse me, Madam President.
yes.
I'm hearing a couple folks a couple board members, reluctance because of the communication or the lack of communication to our employees about
Right.
this process. So I don't know, do we want to table this? And
Thank
that
you,
an
Ms.
issue?
Perkins. Yes, I was not, and Ms. Gilkey, thank you for asking that question. When I asked about, how they were communicated with, and Ms. Helton told us, because we had met so long ago about this situation, I thought they had been communicated with that this was an option. And yes, so I feel very hesitant about going ahead with the vote tonight.
Did you just get those calls today or yesterday?
Yes. And that's why, I mean, we're talking a half an hour before I went on the Zoom before this meeting. And so, yes, I
Madam-
was not aware of the time frame. Now, the whole issue here is, I think this is something that we need to do. I personally do, not just personally, but professionally. And I feel like we've gone through every motion and done everything we can for our employees. I don't know what waiting will do. I think that, I do understand that now why, when I got these, people are, I'm sure as soon as this meeting's over and I'm on Facebook, it's going to have exploded. And that happens when people get wrong information. But I do understand that when people get information that hits them like this, that is another problem.
Madam President,
Yes.
Dr. Clayton, hold on. Ms. Fitzpatrick, would it be okay for Ms. Turner to speak?
hold on just a second.
Yes. Oh, yes.
She would like to speak if the board is okay with her answering some of the questions or being able to speak for a minute.
Yeah, there's a couple
Please
things I
do.
want to say too, in terms of
Okay.
Okay.
did we have a formal meeting in March? Like, we weren't able to because of COVID. Was the word out there that we were looking at this, in terms of food service, yes, that was out there in terms of our, you know, a lot of our workers knowing that we were looking at this as a model. Now, I guess, you know, before Natalie goes in, answers some of the questions, what are the concerns from those people that called? Is it benefit related concerns, or is it, well, you know, all of us are going to Aramark and none of us are staying with Greater Clark? I mean, what are the specific concerns? Because
Okay, well, do you want me to go ahead and address that? And then,
Madam President,
yes,
I thought I had the floor.
go ahead, Mr. Clayton.
Okay. Well, what I was gonna say was this. Now, I was told several weeks ago when we voted on some employees that a statement was made that there was a telephone and why couldn't people be called? Now, if this is something that's going to affect somebody's career, then communication is very important. Regardless if they agree with it or not, they should have been sent a letter. Somebody should have called. I mean, we've got an HR department. Communication to the employees is that we're looking at this, and don't let's always use COVID to be an excuse for not doing what we could have been doing. So at this point, my concern is that the employees need to know what's coming, how it's coming, what they might get. I don't expect Aramark hold on just a second. I don't expect Aramark to replace us in informing our employees. Even though we're giving them to somebody else, I think that's our job to let them know. And then, regardless if they're upset or not, then we make a decision. I think that's just fair to the employees. You know, I could have 5 years in the cafeteria. I know y'all have already looked at this. I could have 5 years and say, well, why couldn't you wait for 5 years till I get invested in 5 more years? But basically, I understand what's going on. There's been, you know, you guys did a good job, but we fell down in letting the people know. And if we put it on somebody else, or we thought, that's inexcusable. We need to make sure they know what's going on, and then we come and vote.
I agree with you, Dr. Clayton. Mr. Loeffner, would you like to say something? And is it okay then that we let Ms. Turner speak as well?
It's up to you, Madam President.
Well, I say yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and we do have another option here too, in terms of, and Natalie can speak to this, approving the bid and then making the decision on whether or not Aramark takes all employees or only takes, you know, only the management, or stays with the management side of things. I mean, that's something we can continue to discuss and make a decision on later. Natalie, do you want to speak to that?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. There were, in the RFP, it was asked that 2 different proposals were submitted by each company that bids on it. So, you know, I can only speak to my organization that we submitted both bids, one with us taking over the employees with the exception of the few that would stay on until the time that they're vested. And then the second one be that everything stays the same as it is currently, and then just continuing to manage the program, the operation itself.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to see, is it possible for us to
amend it
I don't
again?
know the best way to go about it. It would be to table this, take the vote, or table this, pull this until the next meeting so that our employees can be communicated with, regardless of how we're going to, as Dr. Clayton said, regardless of whether people are happy or don't like it, to give the opportunity for them to be communicated with properly.
Can we approve the bid and except for number 1?
Okay.
Or
Well, yeah, I think that's what Natalie would say. We, you know, you could accept the bid and then we could vote
On
Or
the
you guys could vote
specifics.
later to approve whether we're going to have Airmark
because
take over all employees or just.
number one says if.
No.
Yes, it does
So-
say if.
April is,
Before you take anything, I know Ms. Helton also would like to say something if it's possible. I
Yes,
think
oh,
I'm
yes.
Absolutely.
trying to
Yep.
get everything in line for all of this so we can keep this somewhat moving forward, okay?
Right, I understand. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Renee.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Helton, please.
Okay, just before we make, or a decision is made on whether to approve it or not approve it, or whatever you guys are gonna choose to do, I just wanted to let you know that we didn't want to notify because we did not want to make an assumption that this was going to be approved. So
Absolutely.
maybe that
yeah, that's a good
that
point.
was not something that we put out there until we know that the board's approved it and it's final. So, but going forward with your decision making, I just want to let you know that we are on a tight time frame with those people and getting their retirement going. So the ones that are eligible to draw, I just want you to know that they only have a certain amount of time to get that going, and their last pay right now is going to be at the end of June. So in order for them to get that process going, they have to know what we're going to do. This is no
Okay.
pressure. I just want you to have all the information.
No, thank you very much.
I
Our
s-
first, yes, our
I'm
first,
sorry. I also just want to tell you, you can approve the award of the food service bid like Ms. Hutchinson was talking about, and then make a decision on which one at a later date, if you wish.
okay. So, Ms. Turner, all of these 14, we know 5 and 6 are out, but everything else would stay the same other than number 1. Is that correct?
Mm-mm.
No, the guarantee is different
Yes.
depending on which
Right. That's in number 1.
proposal you take. That's correct.
Yes. But
So
the
what
other
we're still
ones,
saying, everything else
2,
like
3, 7 through
7, 8, 9.
14, will those remain the same regardless of which one we choose?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so
Perfect.
Ms. Geltmaker, how could we go about this? If we are comfortable with approving Aramark as our food service provider, yet holding off
I-
on the number 1 decision.
And I think, board, that is what the recommendation was to simply approve
Right.
Aramark as the food service provider. So I do not think you need to amend
Okay,
the
Um,
actual action item. Just clearly, we have some details to decide on at a later date,
Mhm.
but the
Okay.
award has already been, it's already awarded to just simply award the bid to Aramark.
But April,
Shoot.
my concern is
no.
if we if we award based on the proposal that Airmark made, in the proposal, if I'm not wrong, in the proposal, it talked about our staff
It says
transition.
if. It just says if. It says they guarantee if they take over all food services. It doesn't say they will. It just says that if that's the decision that Greater Clark goes with, this is the guarantee.
That's correct.
And there is a second one
Janelle?
for if you choose the other proposal. So the number 1, the numbers would just be different. And Mark, if you, or Mr. Lochner, if you
Okay.
Yeah, Janelle and Teresa, you may remember there was, there was another proposal there that I want to say it was around in the 500,000s. The
Right?
Mm-hmm, right.
and that's
But
the difference.
that's not what,
actually 6 in the 600s.
Yeah, 600.
Can we,
may,
can we, April, how do we do this again? Let's
Well-
back up and amend this. So
Don't-
we can pass
Janelle?
Aramark, but not make a decision on,
That's what it states. Like that's what it states already.
Janelle?
Amend it,
yes,
so.
Ms. Gilkey?
I'm sorry. In my experience, I think we either need to move forward with what has been recommended and moved on and seconded, or we need to table it.
Yes.
Anything else would be confusing, and we don't have the other information that you guys are talking about.
Well, and I think
That's my opinion.
Okay. And
I agree with that, but I trust the committee's opinion too. And I think if we're sitting up against a timeline,
Yeah.
we might be good because as Ms. Helton was talking about, we obviously need to move forward with it soon, but our next meeting is June the 9th. And is there any reason why we could not table it until our June 9th meeting? And in that time period, our employees need to know. I mean,
Ms. Helton, does that give them enough time to be able to make the decision they need to about retirement?
gosh,
Yes, we have in the letter that is supposed to go out, which I was waiting for the approval tonight before we sent the letters, but they would have to let us know by June 5th in order to get their retirement and everything, last pay set up on time.
okay, so
June 9th doesn't work.
That's
June 9th does
And
not work.
Madam President, if I may, please, there's also a conversion with the employee benefits. And we want to ensure that we are able to provide them with benefits. So that timeline is a very tight timeline.
exactly.
Moving forward,
Okay.
as you spoke.
I'd like to say one thing if I could. I've kind of not got into this. I know that we at one time did have a bargaining unit for our employees based on what Ms. Helton's told me. And then I also know that they decertified. And I feel for the people that have some concerns about it, employees, but I also realize that whenever they voted to decertify, then they also voted to work with the Greater Clark on an individual by individual basis. And this is therefore a decision that Greater Clark County Schools is looking at. And I guess I'm of the opinion that you would have, perhaps it would have been better off to stay certified.
Well, I can make it simple for everybody. We can go ahead and take the vote tonight. Probably the majority is going to approve it. I'm just saying that just for those two grounds that I won't vote for it. But if someone has any strong reservations, then you either voice it now or we table it. But
Well, like what John said, I mean, I support the committee. I mean, we trust each other as board members to go in there, and like Ms. Helton said, disseminating information that hasn't been approved by the board. I mean, I remember not too long ago, somebody got just, I don't know what the kids are calling these days, but they were super salty because somebody introduced another person as a vice assistant principal before the board approved it. So we can't be like, hey, this is your new vice principal until we approve it. But we can tell people that there's this whole change in management before it's approved. That seems like a double-edged sword.
Well,
and maybe we need new policies on that. Maybe that's something.
I didn't. Yeah,
Okay.
I was on the committee. I'm hearing Ms. Gilkey and I'm hearing Dr. Clayton, and I did not know that they found out today. I do understand that.
Well-
I do understand that you can't tell somebody what's going to happen before it's approved. I still think, and it's on the agenda. If we could have communicated to them, look at the agenda because there's an item on there. It's going to affect you. We wanted you to know. We don't know if how it's going to be, voted on.
What happens if one of them retires and this isn't approved?
Right. Well,
It's awkward. Yeah.
I mean,
okay. I'm about on that no surprises thing. No surprises.
I get it.
And
I get it.
being on the committee and feeling like we did ask every question, I think I
Yeah.
must have missed one.
But when I go back to Janelle, what I'm not asking you to tell me who called, but what were the concerns when they called?
Well, first of all, when I was shocked that somebody said something about it because I thought they would already know at least this might be coming or had been told something about this being on our agenda or had, been talked to with a group. And I realize a lot of things have been scheduled and rescheduled and canceled during this time. This may have been one of them where, as Dr. Clayton said, a telephone might have been good. This is coming. We just want you to know this is coming. Perhaps the board will not even pass it in this way, but we want you to know in case it is, because there are two options here. And as the committee, we knew there were two options. And so I guess in one way, I was a little bit just kind of thrown off by being contacted, because some people don't want to work for Aramark. They want to work for Greater Clark. Well, I'd like to work for the FBI, but it's just, I mean, and I'm not being uncaring. It's just like,
You're not tall enough.
You gotta have a special degree for that.
okay.
Well,
But, here's the other thing is, I understand that people may not want to make a change. I felt like being on the committee that we ask a whole lot of questions to help our employees and make sure that our employees did not get any kind of shaft. And I don't use that word, Natalie, against Aramark or you. That's just the word. So, I mean, I felt like we were asking all the right questions. Also, because we could have gone either way with it. We could have gone, if here's what we get, and there were two numbers. Number one is the only different item. I just one of them was, one of the complaints was, but some people don't want to work for Aramark.
Did they give you any reasons?
They just don't. I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
They just, and so people were very upset, and we have been extremely transparent as possible in so many ways, that we have brought things to the board. And I do understand that you can't tell somebody this is going to happen before it happens, because you don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like maybe that there could have been some communication about the options that we were looking at when we did our food service RFP, because we knew that was coming, and we knew that, we might possibly, have to make a decision there. But we also, I just feel like if there was going to be a meeting a week ago or in mid-March or something to tell people what was being looked at, that might have made it easier, or reaching out on the phone and saying, this is what's coming. And, we can't tell you definitely until the board votes.
I think the RFP did include the fact that we're looking at not entertaining the food service people as our employees. Because
I thought I remembered a conversation about that.
we did.
As well,
We did, or we
That's
wouldn't have had
correct.
two different proposals turned in.
Right.
So,
Right.
so they're, let me ask Natalie a question. Natalie, what is the worst case scenario for you if it were tabled until the next meeting? Can't hear you.
you're muted.
Oh,
So my biggest concern with the employees, if they were to transition, would be a lapse in their insurance and the timeline that we would have to get them onto our insurance versus ending with Greater Clark employment.
Well, that appears to be something we could work on, so that, I don't know. I'm like Janelle. I did not know that the employees would only be finding out about this the night of or the day before our vote.
Well,
That bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's nothing else that can be done to enhance, because we hammered that with both companies about protecting our employees. So I don't know. I would say we either table it until our next meeting.
well, then we have the retired people who who will be 4 days too late to turn in their retirement.
Could we not
Right.
change that date? I mean,
I
who
mean-
says that's the end all date?
We've never changed it for any other retirees. I mean, can you imagine? I don't know.
No,
Ms. Hel-
this is kind of an
If we can
Oh,
change
yeah,
it to the,
situation.
if we can make a change to June 10th, then I think we table this until our June 9th meeting.
Well,
Ms. Helton, what's your thoughts on that?
Disaster.
yeah,
If we wait until after the June 9th meeting, and then we do this, they're not going to start their retirement. They're on time. They're not, the state, there's no way the state will
so
be
there'll
able
be a
to turn it
lapse
around.
and-
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
it's state or
It's the
government
state,
issues,
not
not
us,
us,
yeah.
Right.
right?
Let me,
On-
What I thought.
Not to mention the lapse in insurance could be January before they got insurance.
Oh,
Yeah.
that stuff takes forever.
Well, that's the possibility is that they're going to be considered uninsured as well.
Exactly. and
Okay.
that's
If they
Because they won't have a
retire?
no,
No.
no. If their insurance lapses, then they won't have transferable cover. They may not have transferable coverage.
And it's
I do
because
not know.
we
Pre-existing
delayed.
conditions and things like that.
Right.
Okay, so I have another proposal, and that is that, especially since we're Zooming our meetings right now, that we call and we have an emergency meeting for that one item. And we'll just make it so the employees can find out about what we're looking at, and that we are going to have an emergency meeting to vote on it, even if it's next week.
I don't have a problem with that.
yeah, I was just thinking on would June the 2nd, would that not be impossible, or is that too late? I know you say the 5th, but if we had a meeting on the 2nd, would that to allow the employees to know that that's coming?
Well,
So
Yep.
Tricia, your letters are ready to go out. And so the managers had a meeting today. Your letters will go out tomorrow. And that would give us, they at least they're put on notice and still be able to meet that state retirement timeline.
Okay.
It,
that
Tricia,
work?
am I correct?
Yeah, and the letters though do say that we are moving our employees over to Aramark. So if you want me to rephrase that, then I would need to redo that.
No, I mean, that's what's in the proposal. That's what, I mean, we just want to get communicated, right? So if they're going to get communicated, then I say just do that. Does it say in the letter that it's already been approved, or that it's about to be approved, or like this is happening?
Yeah.
I think
it-
maybe we need to have an emergency Zoom meeting on June the 2nd. And then maybe we can figure this out before then, but we need to communicate with our employees. And if it's communication of there's going to be a vote to approve our food service management, and in that vote is a choice that the board will make, then at least they know it's coming. Can we say there's going to be a choice between two items, and the board will vote on that?
Madam
Sure.
President,
Yep.
I think the key thing with the committee and everything is that pretty set on what you want, what direction we want to go. My only concern was that if the employees are notified before the weekend that we will be voting to approve or disapprove, okay, that's all. We don't have to get into a whole lot of extras. We've got this choice or that choice. We've got a recommendation before us. And I don't really have a problem with that. I only have a problem with two things: trust and notification to employees. Now,
Right.
I know that, and this is not anti-Mark, but I know that we get things on the phone, and maybe employees could get the same thing as, disseminated out there by the superintendent for those employees only, and let that be it. I mean, that's all I'm asking, is that they are aware.
Right.
Okay, I don't think
I
it's
totally agree. I totally agree.
Janelle, this
mhm.
is Tom. Can I say something?
Yes,
When
sir.
we met with the managers this afternoon at 1:00 today, their main concern was, am I going to have a job? How much am I going to get paid? And insurance. So we told them everybody's moving over to Aramark. Everybody's going over as long as they could pass their drug screening and their background check. They'll all be hired. They'll be hired in their current position. They'll get their same current wage that they're currently making. So they're not losing any money. They're going to be at their same school, working their same hours. It's just their check is not going to say Greater Clark. It's going to say Aramark. Then Natalie said in January, they always have a merit increase. So every January, they will get a merit increase. We don't offer merit increases every January or whatever. There may be several years. I think they said in the last 7 years, how many increases have you seen? And the ladies held up two fingers, like two raises in 7 years. So it's the fear of the unknown for the employee because they don't know if they're going to have a job or not. We've told that to the managers. We've told them all their salaries will be the same. As far as the benefits go, they're going to have a 401k. They're going to have the option, Aramark has 270,000 employees worldwide. They have all these different healthcare plans that they could look at. There's probably 9 or 12, 15 different plans that they could look at to choose depending on what level they want to have a copay on. So these are some of the things that we were hearing today at 1 o'clock. And I think our meeting with them kind of put them at ease as far as that goes. I think once they started telling their employees, that's where it started spreading like wildfire.
Right. Exactly,
Okay,
Dr.
Todd,
Dykle. And that's the problem I have is that just a little more time, and we know a little more time and a fire gets out of control, or a little more time and things die down.
Okay, so
And even if we could just
table it and have an emergency meeting next Tuesday to approve what's been posted
Yes.
here on the agenda.
we can't say that it's going to be approved, but we can say that's what's going to be on the emergency meeting agenda, just that
right.
item.
Just going to tell everybody about it, and then
That's right.
may or may not approve
Well,
it.
that's Michael. That's Tom described it pretty well. We that's what we were trying to do is answer questions today in terms of let them know that the recommendation was moving forward. I still contend that most people in the food services knew we were looking at this, and I contend that that's what we're trying to do is answer some of those questions today to put them at ease. I think if you all remember 10 years ago, 8, 9, 10, 12 years ago, the same thing happened, where the administration pushed to bid out all the food services and this is what happened. I will tell you, my belief as your superintendent is that the recommendation is that Aramark take over all food services. And there's various reasons for that. Number one, the work they've done with this, what they have to offer our employees. And quite frankly, the bigger one that I'm worried about is, we're looking at, by having them take over all our employees, we're looking at a potential, $350,000 to $400,000 savings to our budget, and with what's headed our way come January 2021, that's significant, and
What about the
I hate
lapse
to
of
put it
coverage?
that way, but it's significant. So
Mark,
Wait,
let
we
me,
do this. Wait,
Go
if
ahead.
we do this and we do this on Tuesday instead of today, will anybody be at risk for lapse of insurance?
Tricia would have to,
or Natalie or
Mark,
Yes, potentially, yes, Katie,
okay,
because
Mark,
we cannot move forward without a board vote.
We're talking about June 2nd though, Natalie, not June the 9th.
what if it was June 2nd?
There's a potential,
time.
yes.
Mark, let
We're
me,
in a whole new month.
Natalie has the floor.
Okay.
Mark, let me ask you a question. You said today y'all spoke with the managers,
Yes.
okay? And are you saying that the other employees previously knew that that's what we were looking at?
We didn't have a meeting with them, no, but
No.
that word was out there that we were looking, within the bid, we were looking at doing it both ways, whether we keep the management, just the Aramark just keeps the management side and we keep the employees, or Aramark takes all employees.
Okay, was that was told to the managers, or were they supposed to say that to their people,
We did not direct them to say that to their people, no.
You just spoke to the managers.
How many are we looking at lapse in, like, how many employees are we looking at for a lapse in insurance? If we do this on June 2nd?
It's a
Everybody that's gonna get switched over and not retire.
Well,
No.
no, the retirement is June 5th.
Right, no,
But
this is
we're
earmarked- this
talking
is
about
I
all
said
earmarked
everybody who's
employees.
not going to, who is
Mhm.
going to retire, they don't have to worry about it. Everybody
Right.
else is
Right.
at risk.
Right, everybody else
Okay.
is at risk. So how many employees is
Okay.
that's at risk if we move this a week?
At losing their
Let's do,
insurance. and-
excuse me, let's do the meeting on Friday, May 29th
That's what I was going to recommend.
at about 7:30 in the morning.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
All right.
And that gives us 3 days to communicate with our employees. How do we need to do that? Because I think each of those people needs to be
Well, we would have to.
called or Zoomed or something.
Yeah.
I like Dr. Clayton's suggestion where if we can zero down to just those employees and give them a phone message like we do when there's inclement weather, and not just say there's going to be a vote, but actually put some positive, bullets in there about what's going to be different when you are an employee of Airmark. Because I think
Yeah.
that's why some of them are crazed because, we tell and I'm not saying anything bad about the managers, but we all know what you hear and what you move on
Yeah.
sometimes is not the same.
That's
And
right.
it can also be the way it's said.
Right.
So I just think it needs to be a message from Mark.
Well,
Explain.
and my personal feeling on that is we need to be in the same room. I think like the phone messages to me is too impersonal, and it doesn't give them that chance to interact and ask questions that they
Yeah,
may have of.
There's no way you can do that by Friday. I mean, people have.
You guys, we can't do a Friday morning meeting. We don't have enough time to post it.
Okay. If this comes down, to someone losing their benefits because of the time frame, then I'll back off and say, hey, I'll vote for it because I don't want to see anybody hurt.
I agree with
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I agree with
If we're coming down to not losing anything, then I'll vote for it. But I will be ugly if they don't get what you say y'all agreed upon verbally and not in the contract. Okay.
I agree with that.
I call for the vote. I call
okay,
for the vote tonight.
All right. I have a question for Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
What do we need for an emergency meeting? Because we had one,
Right.
s-
So if,
what is it,
thank you,
72
Janelle.
hours?
No,
Well,
the
for an emergency is, there are no notice requirements to an emergency meeting, but if we wanted to
Would
call
this
a
not be
special
an
board,
emergency meeting?
it very well could qualify as that, yes.
Then we can have it Friday, correct?
Well, Milton called for a vote. Is that not a real thing? Like,
No,
he called for a vote. That's
well, I was just told
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
by Renee that we don't have enough time to post it.
Right,
We
right.
don't, correct, yes, for a
Okay,
regular or
but if it's an
special.
emergency meeting, then we can have it on Friday morning.
That
Wait,
is,
would this
those are
be
for
cons-
actual or threatened emergencies involving injury to persons or property, or actual or threatened disruptions of the operation of the school
Aha.
corporation. And so I believe that this would qualify, meet the definition of an emergency meeting if the board
Okay.
wanted to
It-
hold an emergency meeting.
Yeah, it's a threat to individuals because it's for employees and possibly losing their insurance coverage.
Right. Okay. I would
Or
like
other
to
issues.
propose that we have an emergency meeting Friday morning.
Natalie, does that give enough time?
You
for-
already have a motion on the floor that has to be
Well-
voted on.
Well,
Sure do.
And-
Okay. Well, then,
Or rescinded,
Okay.
Or rescinded.
I rescind it, but I just need to ask Natalie, is Friday going to give you enough time to make sure all of your employees are covered without lapse?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So-
The meeting.
does
Okay.
Trish feel good about this? Trish, does this
I
sound?
will make happen whatever you guys need to happen. So if
Okay.
we need to go
Okay,
in
I just wanted-
all
Thank you.
tomorrow morning, then
Yes.
that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
Whether
you.
we meet with them in person in small groups or over
How
the
are you
phone.
gonna get that done by Friday?
You're not going to.
You're not going to. Like, there's no way you can meet with them. Like, that's setting unrealistic expectations, I think, for yourself and for people. I mean, I realize they're not working, but they might have, like, people might.
Well, they may be able to Zoom, and I think if they're very, very, very concerned, they could Zoom
Right.
and say what they need to say. But at least they would be notified of what's going on, and that's the best you can do. You can't do a personal meeting in this situation. Even if it was normal, it would probably be, but so
the new
Ms.
normal.
Hutchinson,
Yeah, I
can
recently
you?
had it so hard that, like, I can feel it bouncing back in my face. That's how hard it was send that motion.
She rescinded her motion. Okay.
Okay.
And
Your
then
motion-
Mrs. Patrick, you made a motion to table this item
I
until.
second that.
Okay. hold
Okay.
on. Ms. Hutchinson seconded. Is that what? Okay.
I did. Mm-hmm.
Yes, she
Thank
did.
you.
I
Okay.
rescind the call for the vote.
I almost spit my lemonade all over my laptop.
Okay. Okay.
Can I make a suggestion and then I'll shut up?
No.
Oh,
Only
go
if you
ahead, Ms.
promise.
Perkins.
Okay. If we're going to have this meeting on Friday, I think we somehow or another, and I understand, Mark, how the phone message is very impersonal. I agree. But I think we need to let our employees know that there'll be an opportunity to Zoom in and ask questions. We need to have a period on our agenda.
Before, no, wait,
No.
no.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
We
They can
can't do-
sign up to talk if they want.
Yeah, we
Well, they
can't
can
do
sign
that.
for comments. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, but they can't, but we can't respond to them, so they can't ask questions.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Right. I
No,
don't know. I don't see that, Ms. Perkins. I just see that it, by them being notified, phone is impersonal, but at this time, maybe it could be a phone message. And then that phone message could have in it, if you have any further, want any further explanation, please go to the Greater Clark. I don't know. Can they get an email where they can
How-
get a Zoom link where they
Yes.
can Zoom for about just a
Yeah,
15, 20-minute explanation
Yeah. We,
of
we,
what's
about
going on?
How about an email showing them the proposals and
But
then
they're not gonna
giving
check
them
their
a,
email in the summer.
Yeah. they don't anyway. Food service doesn't.
Food
If
service
they
is
get
different.
if they get a phone message that says to check their email, then that could,
Well, they probably don't. Then you're gonna have tech like.
you
um,
know,
who
if they're
are-
that
who are gonna
concerned
log in.
and they're not checking emails or listening to their phone messages and they don't want to listen to anything, then I can't,
Madam
We can-
President,
Yeah.
we need to
I,
we have rescinded a motion.
we haven't voted
I know.
to rescind it.
Well, you don't vote.
I would like to call
You
for a
have to
vote.
vote on the original
Right.
motion, and then you have to vote on the rescission. But before you do that, delaying this to Friday, this decision, this to vote on Airmark taking over these employees. What is changing from right now?
I think Tom just said the only difference is that their check will be from a different, not Greater
No,
Clark.
No.
No, I don't mean that, I don't mean that, honey.
That's
What I'm saying is, where
Distinction.
is it different for us?
Oh,
I mean, right now.
That we did the
we're
right
saying,
thing, that we communicated with our employees, and
how are
that
we
is the biggest.
communicating with them?
well,
they're gonna get a phone call.
yeah, we can set up a school messenger message that
All
calls
right.
each employee and then tells them to check their email and the date of the Zoom meeting. Those that can log on and Zoom with us, that way we could interact with them in that way, and let them ask questions, explain. what
Okay,
their
that,
work can
that
be.
makes sense and I'm okay.
Yeah,
Right.
we could certainly do that, and Zoom with them, and then, they can ask any questions they want to ask of
Right.
us or Natalie or,
Because if they don't have notification that there's an opportunity to voice their concerns, it's no different than tonight.
Yeah.
So I
Correct.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have to vote on the rescission? Like I rescinded it, so now we have to vote that I rescinded it.
I just
Well-
thought we had to, I just thought we had to do the final vote now. I've got it
On
all
table.
written down on the votes and then the rescission, and now I've got where Janelle made a motion to table the item until we have the emergency meeting on Friday, May 29th. Katie, you
Okay.
seconded that motion.
I did.
Okay, so we are voting then on tabling this item.
Yes.
Okay. We're voting on tabling this item until we can have an emergency meeting on Friday, May the 30th.
29th. May
29th, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
May 29th.
Whose dog is that? They need to mute it.
It's not mine, I don't have a dog. Okay.
Mute your,
my
mute your
dog.
dog.
My dog's
How do you
sleeping.
vote
Fine.
on, how do you vote on the tabling motion, Ms. Gilkey?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Okay. And I vote aye. And this item is tabled.
I'm sorry about Stella. She's just not happy about
That's
it.
okay. We've got one more. We can do it. Come on, Janelle.
You can mute your
She has
phone,
died.
Teresa.
Okay, our next item is
She's okay.
authorization
She's
to
quiet.
award the tax anticipation bid.
Yes, thank you. As you well are well aware, the governor has given taxpayers an additional 60 days to pay their property taxes due to the COVID-19 crisis. And based on that, we think we need some money in our debt service and pension debt because we have all these bonds that are due in June and July. So the board gave us permission to ask for $1,870,000 in the debt service fund and $245,000 in the pension debt fund for a total of $2,115,000. We sent the bids electronically to 12 banks and or financial institutions, asking them to submit a quote. For the warrants, we received bids from 2 companies, and West Banco sent an email stating the warrant was too short of a time for them to bid. The bank financial institutions that didn't submit a bid are as follows: Bank of New York, Mellon, PNC, Hutchinson, Shockey, and Early, Chase, JP Morgan, First Savings, Commercial Bank, German American, and Stockyard Bank. Bids were received on May 20th at 10 a.m. and we had 2 bidders. PSC bid $9,813.60 and Centur bid $10,011. Based on the interest calculations, the lowest bid is PSC for a total net interest payable of $9,813.60, and that's who we'd like to award it to, with your permission.
Madam President, I move that we approve the bid of the tax anticipation warrant as stated to PSC of New York.
Second.
There are absolutely no comments or questions, so
A call for a vote.
let's do it. Janelle, I think you're muted, babe.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson,
You're welcome.
for telling me I was muted. Any questions or comments on this?
I could read your lips when you're muted.
Well, good. All right. We'll do it like that the next time. Okay. So for approval on this authorization to award the tax anticipation bid, Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Dr. Clayton?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
And I
And
vote
Stella
aye.
says aye.
And yeah. And this item is approved. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
No, ma'am.
Do we have any board comments or superintendent comments?
No.
No,
I have one comment. Thankfully, this is finally a situation where I haven't monopolized things.
Isn't that the truth? I was just thinking,
That is right.
you're so
Okay.
good.
Thank you,
Look
Bill. Thank you,
for
Mr. Hawkins.
Yeah.
Bill, you did good this week.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
A little mountain time helped you clear your head.
That's right.
You may
Okay.
want to mute me.
well, and I was just gonna say, we'll do our best to share the information we can,
Thank you, Mark.
create some kind of bullet points for what
Right.
We'll work with Natalie on what Aramark brings to the table for them versus, what they're currently getting and, try to give a little more detail on that.
I mean, I think just letting them know it's going to be voted on.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of time, but at least we give them, I don't know, a couple of days think time, whatever. And they may make some different decisions for themselves, but I just feel like they knew it was coming, but then again, sometimes you think things are coming and then they don't, and then they don't. So it just,
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing the right things
Mark-
for our employees.
Mark, could I ask that whatever communication goes out, whether it's via school messenger or email or both, that you copy the board so that we can hear the message, see the message, so we know in case we get calls, we know exactly what was said, what was talked about, what was shown.
Sure.
So we know how to respond.
Very good
Yeah,
point, Christina.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else? Motion for adjournment, please.
I move that we
Move to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Oh my gosh, listen to all those voices.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter, and thank you, Dr. Clayton. Ms. Gilkey, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Aye.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Aye.
Miss Hutchinson,
Aye.
Dr. Clayton,
Abstain. No, aye.
Ms. Perkins,
Aye.
Ms.
I
Perkins.
muted her.
Oh,
I muted her because of her dog.
oh, Ms. Perkins, do you vote to adjourn?
Aye.
Did you
Yes.
unmute her? Oh, okay. And I vote to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Yay. Bye, guys.